to business continuity planning and project management approach. In this presentation, I will cover the specifically in general business continuity, in general, I should say, and also specifically putting together a business preparedness plan using the disciplines of project management. We have a couple of objectives. One of them is, of course, we're going to cover the basic concepts of business continuity and specifically preparedness, and also appreciate the value of business preparedness and the use of project management in building a resilient company or organization that you may be part of, whether it could be a department, it could be a subsidiary, whatever the structure's in, business preparedness is and business continuity are very relevant. So I'll show how you can use project management to get your company more resilient. So those are the three objectives that we're going to try to achieve today, which we will achieve, I should say. And so the next slide is, as you can see here, is you're probably wondering what the heck is business continuity. Well, business continuity really is fundamentally an approach for developing and deploying and maintaining, as you can see here, strategies and procedures to ensure that critical business processes are resilient. In other words, the company or the organization that you're a member of will be able to respond to and recover from an event that could potentially either progress in terms of meeting the customer's needs or affect the bottom line of your company from a financial perspective. So, business continuity, business has three deliverables, and these fundamental three deliverables are putting an infrastructure in place, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Also, making sure that you perform a business impact analysis. That's absolutely important to ensure that basically that the risks have been identified and prioritized, and from a business perspective, a little bit about that. And of course, ultimately, the final deliverable is a business preparedness plan. So these are the three fundamental deliverables for business continuity. So, what continuity? Well, here from this slide, there's a host of reasons that make good sense. The bottom line is we live, as everybody knows now, in a global economy, and something that you can have your business, it might be an internet business, it might be a manufacturing business, it may be a financial business, and something happens on the other side of the globe, and then, bammo, the company's at risk. It can affect the performance, and you want to be able to make sure that you have good disciplines in place, and that's why business continuity exists. So you see here you got terrorism, war, and of course recently, both in Japan and Ecuador, you had major earthquakes, and I'm sure there's import-export businesses that have been impacted by that. You got the threat of nationalization, political pressure to increase regulations. Another thing is, for business continuity, another reason for it is, of course, insurance costs. Business insurance can be expensive if you don't have business continuity in place, and you can save money by having business continuity in place and can reduce your business insurance costs. There's always the danger of litigation, and of course the financial situation is so highly integrated now that, for instance, money coming from Dubai can finance major businesses in the United States. There's political turmoil out there. It could affect the performance of the company locally. See here, there are several goals to business continuity, really fundamental ones. However, one is, of course, you want to be able to have your organization survive in the face of an event, And, of course, you want to minimize the impact of that event and, of course, recover your critical business processes. All three of these goals are tightly integrated that if you don't put a good business continuity program in place and a supporting group of business preparedness plans, and we'll talk what those are in a bit, what happens is that the company becomes vulnerable. And there's all sorts of consequences to that. I don't need to mention not just loss of stock price, loss of business, but there's also loss of jobs and other collateral damage that can occur. So as you can see on the next slide here, the potential impacts of an event, and they're all there, and some of them is remote, like a cosmic impact. But you got climate change, and I'll tell you, whether you're pros or cons or how it's dealt with, climate change is occurring, and a lot of the major insurance companies, especially reinsurance companies, are now considering the impact of climate change. You got war. We had that Icelandic eruption that occurred, and it impacted the airline industry in Europe. Of course, you got tsunamis, and on the other side, you got things like financial crisis. You got there's major fires out here in Seattle. We had one heck of a summer last summer that destroyed a number of towns, and a lot of very valuable lumber impacted the lumber industry. And of course, the airline industry has been from swine flu and all that other stuff. A lot of pandemics can affect transportation systems. So you have a host of things that can occur and of course not everything is equal, and so there are a series of events that can occur. And so this is a hierarchy of events. You have a little incident that occurs. Let's say there's somebody throws a cigarette in a basket, a waste basket, catches on fire. All of a sudden, it expands into something very seriously, and it starts putting your office on fire. So you got an emergency, and then sooner or later, he's saying, "Wow, this is a lot bigger than I thought." And the fire department came in, and all of a sudden, the business starts catching on fire. You got yourself a disaster. Several offices are being destroyed, and then finally, the whole building starts to catch on fire. And so you've got a real crisis, but you can still handle it. And then you hit the point that it's a catastrophe. And then I think it's Bill Paxton in Aliens, the movie, says, "Game over, dude." And so there's not much you can do when you hit the catastrophe point. That would be something that's major, like in a non-fire type thing, is maybe a tsunami that occurred a few years back and destroyed whole regions in the area. So here, business continuity has a number of benefits, and of course the most important one is to be able to recover your critical business processes. And we'll talk a bit what a critical business process is in a little bit. The other thing is that there's some general advantages that people don't realize, especially in larger organizations, is that when people work in their environment, they get in a very narrow focus, and they lose sight of the big picture of how the work they do or the processes they perform or the procedures they perform or operations, how they play in the whole scheme of things in terms of a critical process and also the recovery of a company in case it gets hit with an event. So things that doing business continuity, and I have found based on my experience, is that people start exchanging information that they ordinarily would not do. Is that they build trust. It builds trust by people starting to understand